For 3 centuries, humanity had been the galaxy's punching bag. Every species with faster ships, better weapons, or superior technology thought they could push around the primitive humans. They saw our slower-than-light expansion, our outdated energy weapons, our simple metal ships, and assumed we were weak. They were catastrophically wrong. What they didn't understand was that humans have been practicing restraint, not weakness. Every attack they launched, every colony they destroyed, every human life they took was carefully cataloged in databases that span solar systems. We have been polite. We have been diplomatic. We have been patient. But patience, like all human virtues, has limits. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth's most terrifying phrase wasn't a threat of violence. It was a promise of manners ending. Because when humans stop being polite, the universe remembers why we climbed to the top of our planet's food chain armed with nothing but sharpened sticks and an absolute refusal to quit. This is the story of humanity's final warning, and what happened when the galaxy chose not to listen. Admiral Sarah Chon stood at the observation deck of the U.S. Determination, watching the debris field that had once been the human colony of New Brisbane drift silently through space. 47,000 souls had called that orbital station home just 6 hours ago. Now it was twisted metal and frozen atmosphere, another casualty in humanity's ongoing struggle to find a place among the stars. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian fleet, reported Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. They're claiming salvage rights to the debris field. Sarah's jaw clenched. The Zephyrians hadn't just destroyed New Brisbane. They wanted to profit from its remains. She turned from the viewport, her weathered face reflecting decades of similar scenes. At 58, she had watched humanity expand into space with hope, only to discover that the galaxy was far less welcoming than Earth's worst dictators had ever been. "Put them through," she said, settling into her command chair. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the elongated, crystalline features of a Zephyrian commander. Their species resembled living glass sculptures, beautiful in an alien way, but Sarah had learned not to mistake their aesthetic appeal for kindness. "Human vessel," the Zephyrian began, its voice carrying the musical quality typical of its species. "You are in violation of Zephyrian territorial space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Sarah leaned forward slightly. "Commander, this system was colonized by humans 12 years ago. We have documented proof of our claim, registered with the Galactic Commerce Authority." The Zephyrian's form shimmered with what Sarah recognized as amusement. "Your documents are irrelevant. The Zephyrian Empire has claimed this system under the right of superior force doctrine. Your primitive colony represented a security threat to our trade routes. 47,000 civilians represented a security threat." Sarah's voice remained level, but everyone on the bridge could sense the dangerous undertone. "Humans breed quickly and expand aggressively," the Zephyrian replied dismissively. "It was a preemptive measure. Now withdraw or join your colonists in the void." The transmission ended abruptly. Sarah stared at the blank screen for a long moment, then activated her personal communicator. "Communications, give me a secure channel to Earth Command. Priority Alpha." Within minutes, the tired face of Admiral Hassan Rodriguez appeared on her personal screen. As Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces, Rodriguez had aged visibly in the past 5 years as humanity's expansion efforts met increasing resistance. "Sarah, I heard about New Brisbane. How bad?" "Total loss." The Zephyrians claim they were protecting their trade routes. Sarah's voice carried 3 decades of military discipline, but Rodriguez could hear the fury beneath. "Hassan, this is the 7th colony we've lost this year. The Veltar took out New Johannesburg last month. The Cretan destroyed the farming platform at Alpha Centauri B, and now this." Rodriguez rubbed his temples. "The diplomatic corps is still trying to negotiate with the major powers. They think we can find common ground." "Common ground?" Sarah interrupted, something she never did under normal circumstances. "Hassan, they're not interested in negotiation. They see us as vermin to be exterminated or driven back to Earth. Every species with superior technology thinks humanity is fair game. What are you suggesting, Admiral? Sarah was quiet for a moment, considering her words carefully. I'm suggesting that maybe it's time we stopped being so diplomatic. Our restraint is being interpreted as weakness. Rodriguez's expression grew troubled. Sarah, Earth's population is barely 8 billion. The Zephyrian Empire alone spans 12 star systems with over 200 billion citizens. The Veltar Confederacy is even larger. We can't fight the entire galaxy. We can't keep letting them slaughter us either. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent chime from the bridge communications console. Lieutenant Commander Webb's voice came through the intercom. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. It's the Global Defense Council. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. The Global Defense Council only convened for the most serious threats to human survival. Patch it through to my ready room. Hassan, can you conference in? Already done. Sarah's ready room was spartanly furnished, reflecting her practical nature. The large screen activated, revealing the faces of the 12 members of Earth's Global Defense Council. These were the leaders of humanity's most powerful nations and organizations, people who rarely agreed on anything. The fact that they were meeting together spoke to the severity of the situation. President Elena Vasquez of the American Federation spoke first. Admiral Chun, we've received reports of attacks on 17 more human settlements in the past 48 hours. The pattern is escalating. Prime Minister Chun Wei of the Asian Alliance leaned forward. Our intelligence networks indicate this isn't random. The major galactic powers are coordinating their attacks. They're trying to drive humanity back to the Sol system. It's worse than that, added Director James Thornton of the European Commonwealth. We have intercepted communications suggesting they plan to blockade the Sol system entirely. They want to trap us here and slowly starve us of resources. Sarah felt the familiar cold anger settling in her chest. How long do our analysts think we have? 6 months, maybe less, replied General Liu Zhao of the Unified Space Command. They're being methodical about it, destroying our outer colonies first, then working inward. Classic siege tactics. Rodriguez's image flickered slightly as his signal adjusted. The question is, what can we do about it? Our fleets are outnumbered 1,000 to 1. An uncomfortable silence filled the transmission. These were humanity's brightest minds and most experienced leaders, and they were contemplating the possible extinction of their species' expansion into space, perhaps their species entirely. Finally, Dr. Amira Hassan, director of Earth's Strategic Research Division, spoke up. There might be another option. All eyes turned to her. Dr. Hassan was known for her brilliant but often unconventional thinking. She had been responsible for several breakthrough technologies that had enabled humanity's initial expansion. For the past 15 years, we've been reverse engineering alien technology from capture vessels and wreckage. We've made significant advances, but we've held back from implementing them. Why? Asked President Vasquez. Because we were trying to be good galactic citizens, Hassan replied with a bitter laugh. We didn't want to seem threatening. We've been deliberately limiting our technological development to appear non-threatening to the major powers. Admiral Rodriguez leaned forward. What exactly have we been holding back? Hassan activated a holographic display that appeared above the conference table. Three-dimensional models of weapons, ships, and defensive systems rotated slowly in the blue light. Project Prometheus, she began. Advanced fusion weapons that make our current armaments look like firecrackers. Project Atlas, shipbuilding techniques that could triple our fleet size within 18 months. Project Nemesis, stealth and electronic warfare capabilities that could level the playing field against superior numbers. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Prime Minister Chun Wei was the first to speak. These technologies, they could change the balance of power. More than that, Hassan replied. Combined with humanity's natural advantages, our adaptability, our tactical flexibility, our psychological resilience, They could make us a legitimate threat to even the major powers. Natural advantages? Asked Director Thornton. Admiral Chen spoke up from her ship. What Dr. Hassan is referring to is something the aliens haven't figured out yet. They see our technology and assume we're primitive. What they don't understand is that humans don't just adapt to challenges, we thrive on them. She activated her own display, showing tactical analyses of recent conflicts. Every species we've encountered fights according to rigid doctrines. The Zephyrians always use the same flanking maneuvers. The Veltar rely entirely on overwhelming firepower. The Krishin use predictable swarm tactics. Humans improvise, Rodriguez added, understanding where this was going. We change tactics mid-battle. We use unorthodox strategies. We fight dirty when we have to. Exactly, Chen confirmed. But we've been fighting with one hand tied behind our back, trying to be civilized. The galaxy has interpreted our restraint as weakness. President Vasquez stared at the holographic displays. Dr. Hassan, how long would it take to implement these projects? If we mobilize every resource, every facility, every brilliant mind on Earth, and in our surviving colonies? 6 months for the first phase. 18 months for full implementation. General Zhao raised a concern. Even with these improvements, we'd still be vastly outnumbered. This isn't just about technology, it's about industrial capacity, population, resources. Sarah Chun had been quiet during the technical discussion, but now she spoke with the authority of someone who had spent decades in combat. General, you're thinking like a conventional military strategist. But humans didn't conquer Earth by fighting fair. She stood and began pacing, her mind working through possibilities. We don't need to match their industrial capacity or their numbers. We need to make them afraid to fight us. We need to make every attack on humanity so costly that they decide we're not worth the trouble. Guerrilla warfare on a galactic scale, Rodriguez murmured, understanding dawning in his eyes. Precisely. Hit and run tactics. Psychological warfare. Make them paranoid about every shadow, every unexplained signal loss, every minor system malfunction. Turn their superior numbers into a liability by making them guard everything. Dr. Hassan nodded enthusiastically. The technologies we've developed are perfect for that kind of warfare. Stealth ships that can penetrate deep into enemy territory. Weapons that can be disguised as harmless cargo containers. Electronic warfare systems that can turn their own networks against them. Prime Minister Chun Wei looked troubled. This is a significant escalation. Once we reveal these capabilities, there's no going back. The galaxy will see us as a genuine threat. They already see us as a threat, Admiral Chun replied firmly. That's why they're systematically destroying our colonies. The only difference is that right now, they don't think we can fight back effectively. The debate continued for another hour, but Sarah could see the momentum shifting. Humanity had reached a crossroads, and the safe path continued restraint and diplomacy led only to extinction. The dangerous path, revealing their true capabilities and fighting back, offered at least a chance of survival. Finally, President Vasquez called for a formal vote, all in favor of implementing the strategic projects and authorizing military escalation. One by one, the hands went up. It wasn't unanimous. Director Thornton and 2 others abstained, but it was a clear majority. Motion carried, Vasquez announced. Dr. Hassan, you have unlimited resources and authority to implement your projects. Admiral Rodriguez, Admiral Chun, you have authorization to begin strategic operations against hostile forces. As the transmission ended, Sarah found herself alone in her ready room, staring at the tactical displays that still showed the debris field where New Brisbane had been. In 6 months, humanity would begin to show the galaxy what they were really capable of. The question was whether it would be enough. She opened her personal log and began recording. Personal log, Admiral Sarah Chun, Stardate 2387.156. Today, humanity stopped pretending to be harmless. I pray to whatever gods might be listening that we're making the right choice. Because once we start down this path, the galaxy will never look at us the same way again. Outside her viewport, the debris of New Brisbane continued its silent dance through space, a reminder of what they had already lost and what they were fighting to prevent. The die was cast. Humanity's final warning was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the Global Defense Council's fateful decision, and the results were nothing short of miraculous. Dr. Amira Hassan stood in the observation deck of Luna Station's newly constructed Prometheus facility, watching the latest prototype vessel undergo its final tests. The ship looked deceptively similar to humanity's older designs, but beneath its familiar hull lay technology that would have seemed like magic just a year ago. Final systems check complete, announced her assistant, Dr. Robert Kim. All stealth systems operational, fusion drive at 100% efficiency, and the new weapon systems are showing green across the board. Hassan nodded, but her attention was focused on the holographic displays surrounding them. Every screen showed a different aspect of humanity's transformation. Industrial facilities that had been repurposed from civilian manufacturing to military production. Training centers where volunteers from across human space learned to operate equipment that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Research stations where the brightest minds in human history worked around the clock to turn theoretical concepts into deadly reality. Dr. Hassan, came a voice from behind her. She turned to see Admiral Rodriguez approaching, looking considerably more rested than he had 6 months ago. The prospect of action, of finally fighting back, had energized humanity's leadership in ways that years of diplomatic defeats never could. Admiral, perfect timing. We were just running the final tests on the Shadowhawk prototype. Rodriguez studied the sleek vessel through the observation window. At 200 meters in length, it was smaller than humanity's traditional cruisers, but Hassan knew it packed more firepower than anything in their previous fleet. Impressive. How many can we build? With our current production capacity, 12 per month. But that's just the beginning. Hassan gestured to another display showing orbital shipyards around Earth, Mars, and the surviving outer colonies. Admiral Chen's victory at the Kepler Station engagement bought us precious time. The aliens are being more cautious now, giving us the breathing room we needed. The Battle of Kepler Station had been humanity's first real test of their new capabilities. A Veltar raiding fleet had attacked the mining station, expecting another easy victory. Instead, they had encountered Admiral Chen's newly retrofitted squadron equipped with the first generation of Project Prometheus weapons. The alien fleet had been completely destroyed, with only a few escape pods surviving to carry news of humanity's unexpected capabilities back to their command. The psychological impact has been significant, Rodriguez continued. Our intelligence networks report increased anxiety among the major powers. They're starting to question whether humanity is as helpless as they assumed. Hassan activated another holographic display, this one showing a galactic map with various colored indicators. The ripple effects are spreading faster than we anticipated. The Krishin have pulled back their forward fleets. The Zephyrians are reinforcing their core systems. Even the Veltar have slowed their expansion. They're scared, Rodriguez observed with satisfaction. They should be. Hassan manipulated the display to show detailed technical specifications. Project Atlas has exceeded all expectations. Our new construction techniques have revolutionized shipbuilding. We're not just building ships faster, we're building them better. The display showed cross-sections of the new vessels. Advanced hull materials that could absorb energy weapon impacts. Redundant systems that kept ships fighting even after catastrophic damage. Most importantly, modular designs that allowed for rapid field modifications and repairs. The Hercules-class heavy cruisers are particularly impressive, Hassan continued. They're 40% larger than our previous designs, but require 20% fewer crew members thanks to automated systems. And their firepower, she smiled grimly. Let's just say they can crack a planet if necessary. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. Planet crackers? Isn't that a bit excessive? Admiral, we're not planning to destroy planets. But the galaxy needs to know that we could have pushed far enough. Fear of humanity's capabilities is becoming our greatest weapon. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication alert. The main display activated, showing the face of Colonel Maria Santos, commander of Earth's Special Operations Division. Her expression was troubled. Dr. Hassan, Admiral Rodriguez, we have a situation. Our deep space reconnaissance teams have intercepted communications between the major galactic powers. They're planning something called the Final Solution Protocol. Hassan felt her blood run cold. What kind of protocol? A coordinated assault on the Sol system. Not just our outer colonies this time. They're planning to attack Earth directly. Complete extermination of human civilization. The implications hit Rodriguez immediately. When intelligence suggests they're mobilizing now, we have perhaps 2 months before they're ready to move. Maybe less. Hassan's mind raced through calculations. 2 months wasn't enough time to complete all their projects, but it might be enough to implement the most critical ones. Colonel, what's the size of the force they're assembling? Conservative estimates suggest over 2,000 capital ships from 6 different species. They're calling it the largest military alliance in galactic history. Rodriguez went pale. Even with their new technologies, humanity's fleet numbered barely 300 vessels. The odds were overwhelming. There's more, Santos continued. They've issued what they're calling humanity's final warning. They're demanding that all humans abandon their colonies and return to Earth within 30 days. After that, any human presence outside the Sol system will be considered an act of war. Hassan laughed, but there was no humor in it. They're giving us a final warning? How ironic. Rodriguez was already moving into command mode. Colonel, I want every available ship recalled to Earth space. Begin evacuation of non-essential personnel from the outer colonies, but keep skeleton crews to maintain our facilities. If we're going to make a stand, it will be here. Actually, Hassan interrupted, I have a better idea. Both officers looked at her expectantly. We don't fight them at Earth. We fight them everywhere else. Rodriguez frowned. I don't understand. Hassan activated a new display showing human space and the territories of their enemies. The aliens are making the same mistake that every superior force makes against humanity. They're thinking conventionally. They expect us to gather our fleet and meet them in a decisive battle. Winner takes all. That's standard military doctrine, Santos observed. For species that have something to lose, yes. But they've already made it clear they intend to exterminate us. That changes everything. Hassan began highlighting various systems on the map. What if we don't play by their rules? What if we use the time they're giving us to deploy our new technologies in ways they'll never expect? Rodriguez was beginning to understand. Guerrilla warfare on a galactic scale. Exactly. While they're massing their fleets for a grand assault on Earth, we hit their home systems, their supply lines, their civilian infrastructure. We make them realize that declaring war on humanity means their entire civilization is at risk. Santos looked troubled. Dr. Hassan, that would mean targeting non-combatants, civilian populations. Would it? Hassan challenged. Or would it mean targeting the industrial base that supports their military, the communication networks that coordinate their fleets, the resource extraction facilities that fuel their war machine? She pulled up detailed intelligence reports on each major species. The Zephyrians depend entirely on automated mining platforms for their rare Earth elements. Destroy those platforms, and their advanced technology stops working within months. The Veltar have a centralized communication system that coordinates their entire confederacy. Disrupt that, and they can't coordinate large-scale operations. The Krishin use biological factories on their homeworld to produce their weapons. Target those facilities, and their military becomes impotent. Rodriguez studied the data carefully. It's ruthless, and it would certainly get their attention. More than that, Hassan continued, it would force them to choose between continuing their assault on humanity or defending their own homes. No matter how much they want us extinct, they can't ignore existential threats to their own survival. The room fell silent as both officers contemplated the implications. What Hassan was proposing wasn't just military strategy. It was a fundamental change in how humanity approached galactic politics. No longer would they be the victims begging for mercy. They would become the species that other civilizations feared to antagonize. There's something else, Hassan added quietly. Our psychological warfare division has been developing some interesting concepts. Ways to make our enemies afraid, not just of our weapons, but of us as a species. She activated a new display showing various scenarios. Imagine if every species in the galaxy started receiving the same message. Humanity offers this final warning. Cease all hostile actions against human interests, or our courtesy ends now. No threats, no ultimatums. Just a simple statement that their current behavior is unacceptable. And then? Rodriguez asked. Then, we demonstrate exactly what it means when human courtesy ends. Santos was studying the tactical displays. The logistics would be nightmarish. Coordinating simultaneous strikes across dozens of star systems, with limited communication capabilities and no guarantee of resupply. Actually, Hassan smiled. That's where Project Nemesis comes in. She activated yet another display, this one showing a revolutionary communication system. Quantum entanglement communicators. Instantaneous communication across any distance. We've managed to manufacture enough for our key operational units. Rodriguez's eyes widened. Quantum entanglement for communication? That's theoretical at best. Was theoretical. Our researchers cracked the practical applications 3 months ago. Every strike team will be in constant contact with Central Command. Every ship will know exactly what every other ship is doing in real time. The implications were staggering. Military coordination across galactic distances had always been limited by the speed of light. Even the most advanced species could only communicate as fast as their fastest ships could travel. Instantaneous communication would give humanity an unprecedented tactical advantage. How long would it take to deploy these systems? Rodriguez asked. The first operational units could be ready within 2 weeks. Full deployment across our entire fleet within 6 weeks. Santos was running calculations on her personal pad. 6 weeks to deploy communications. 2 months to coordinate and execute simultaneous strikes across multiple star systems. It's ambitious, but it might work. Hassan nodded. The beauty of it is that once we begin, there's no stopping us. Even if they manage to destroy our fleet, the message will be sent. The galaxy will know that humanity is not a species to be trifled with. Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the Shadowhawk prototype as it completed its test flight. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of command decisions that would shape the future of human civilization. Dr. Hassan, you have authorization to accelerate all projects. Whatever resources you need, wherever you need them. Colonel Santos, begin preparing our special operations teams for deep penetration missions. I want target lists for every major hostile power within 48 hours. He turned back to face them both. Ladies, we're about to embark on the most dangerous gamble in human history. If we succeed, humanity will never again be seen as easy prey. If we fail, we won't fail, Hassan said with quiet confidence. Because humanity has one advantage that no other species possesses, which is... Hassan smiled, and, for a moment, Rodriguez could see the same expression that had driven humans to conquer their home planet despite being physically weaker than most of its apex predators. We're the species that looked at the impossible and decided it was just another Tuesday. The galaxy is about to learn why humans never learned how to quit. Outside the observation windows, more prototype vessels began their test flights, each one representing humanity's determination to not just survive, but to thrive among the stars. The final warning was coming, and the galaxy was not prepared for what humanity had become. The message went out simultaneously across 47 star systems at exactly 0800 Earth Standard Time. Every major communication network in known space received the same transmission, broadcast on all frequencies, translated into every known language. The message was simple, direct, and utterly unprecedented in galactic history. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Earth Space Command, speaking on behalf of all humanity. For 300 years, our species has attempted to find a place among the galactic community through diplomacy, trade, and peaceful cooperation. We have endured attacks on our colonies, the systematic destruction of our settlements, and the murder of our civilians with restraint and patience. That patience is now ended. To all species currently engaged in hostile actions against human interests, humanity offers this final warning. Cease all attacks on human settlements, withdraw from human-claimed territory, and enter into good faith negotiations for reparations within 72 hours. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is your final opportunity to resolve this conflict through peaceful means. We have been courteous. We have been diplomatic. We have been civilized. Our courtesy ends now. You have 72 hours. The transmission ended with the coordinates of 27 different star systems and a simple statement. These locations represent the industrial and communication infrastructure that supports your war efforts against humanity. In exactly 72 hours, they will cease to exist. Use this time wisely. Across the galaxy, the reaction was immediate and varied. In the crystal spires of the Zephyrian capital, High Command dismissed the message as human desperation. The Veltar Confederacy's War Council laughed at what they perceived as an empty bluff. The Cretan swarm mothers barely acknowledged the transmission, convinced that the primitives were incapable of reaching their heavily defended core systems. They were all about to learn how catastrophically wrong they were. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, flagship of humanity's newly revealed fleet. Around her, dozens of officers worked at their stations with calm efficiency, their faces reflecting the same deadly determination that had driven their species to dominate Earth despite being one of the physically weakest large mammals on the planet. Admiral, all strike teams report ready, announced Commander Lisa Park, Chin's tactical officer. Operation Courtesy's end is prepared for execution. Chin nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the positions of human forces across the galaxy. 2 years of preparation had led to this moment. Humanity was about to demonstrate why they had never learned the concept of surrender. Communications, patch me through to all strike team leaders. The main screen split into dozens of smaller windows, each showing the face of a human commander positioned deep in enemy territory. These were humanity's best and brightest volunteers who had trained for months to operate the most advanced technology their species had ever created. Ladies and gentlemen, Chin began, her voice carrying across the quantum communication network. In 15 minutes, humanity stops asking politely for our place in the galaxy and starts taking it. Your targets have been selected for maximum strategic impact with minimal civilian casualties. Remember, we're not trying to exterminate these species. We're teaching them that attacking humanity has consequences they can't afford to ignore. Captain James Morrison, positioned in the Zephyrian industrial sector, raised his hand. Admiral, the Zephyrian mining platforms are heavily defended. They've got 3 battle groups patrolling the system. That's why you have the Shadowhawk-class stealth cruiser and enough firepower to level a moon, Captain. The Zephyrians rely on energy shields and long-range sensors. Your ship is invisible to their detection systems, and your weapons can punch through their shielding like it's made of paper. Commander Elena Vasquez, deep in Veltar space, spoke up next. Ma'am, the communication hub here is located in the same system as one of their major civilian population centers. 20 billion Veltar civilians. Which is why you're using precision quantum torpedoes instead of fusion bombs, Commander. Your target is the communication array, not the planet. But make sure the explosion is visible from their capital city. We want them to understand that we could have targeted the civilians, but chose not to. The questions continued for several more minutes, each one reflecting humanity's careful balance between ruthless efficiency and moral restraint. They were about to unleash devastation on a scale the galaxy had never seen from their species, but they were doing it with surgical precision. Final systems check, Chen announced. All teams confirm operational status. One by one, the reports came in. Stealth systems operational. Quantum communicators functioning. Weapons charged and ready. Each strike team represented the absolute peak of human technological achievement, equipped with tools that would have seemed like magic to previous generations. T-minus 60 seconds to execution, announced the ship's AI. The Retribution itself was humanity's most advanced vessel, a prototype that combined every breakthrough they had achieved. At 500 meters long and crewed by only 200 people thanks to advanced automation, it packed more firepower than anything else in known space. Chun felt the familiar calm that settled over her before combat. She had been fighting humanity's enemies for 3 decades, but this would be different. This wouldn't be a desperate defense or a strategic retreat. This would be humanity announcing to the galaxy that they were no longer prey. T-minus 30 seconds. Around the galaxy, human strike teams made their final preparations. In the Zephyrian system, Captain Morrison's stealth cruiser ghosted through sensor networks that had never been designed to detect something so small and advanced. In Veltar space, Commander Vasquez lined up her shots on the massive communication array that coordinated half the Confederacy's military operations. In Krishin territory, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim prepared to demonstrate why attacking human biological research stations had been a catastrophic mistake. T-minus 10 seconds. Chun gripped the armrests of her command chair. In 10 seconds, everything would change. Humanity would cross a line they had never crossed before, transforming from victims to something far more dangerous. Execute Operation Courtesy's end. The galaxy learned what human courtesy ending looked like. In the Zephyrian mining sector, 17 automated platforms that produced 90% of the Empire's rare Earth elements simply vanished in brilliant flashes of contained fusion fire. The explosions were so precise that nearby transport ships weren't even damaged, but the strategic implications were immediately clear. Without those elements, Zephyrian technology would begin failing within months. The Veltar communication hub suffered a different fate. Commander Vasquez's quantum torpedoes didn't just destroy the facility. They created a quantum resonance cascade that disrupted subspace communications across 17 star systems. Suddenly, the Confederacy's vaunted coordination network was reduced to slower-than-light message drones. The Krishin biological weapons factories met perhaps the most poetic justice. Lieutenant Commander Kim's team had spent months developing a biological agent specifically tailored to the alien manufacturing organisms. The factories didn't explode. They simply stopped working as their biological components were reprogrammed at the genetic level. But the real masterstroke came in the secondary targets. While the galaxy's attention was focused on the major strikes, smaller human teams executed precision attacks on dozens of smaller facilities. Communication relays, supply depots, fuel processing plants, and defensive sensor networks across 27 systems suffered simultaneous failures. The message was unmistakable. Humanity could strike anywhere, anytime, and there was nothing their enemies could do to stop them. Admiral Chun watched the reports flood in from across the galaxy. Every single target had been eliminated with 0 human casualties and minimal collateral damage. It was, by any measure, the most successful military operation in human history. Admiral, reported Commander Park, we're receiving multiple emergency transmissions from hostile governments. The Zephyrian Empire is requesting immediate diplomatic contact. The Veltar Confederacy is demanding to know how we bypass their defenses. The Krishin are threatening retaliation. Let them threaten, Chen replied calmly. Patch me through to all major galactic communication networks. It's time for Phase 2. The second message was even shorter than the first, but infinitely more chilling. This is Admiral Chen again. As promised, our targets have been eliminated. This represents approximately 0.001% of our current strike capability. We have identified 14,000 additional strategic targets across hostile territories. Every military installation, every industrial facility, every critical infrastructure node in your empires is now marked for destruction. You now have 48 hours to comply with our original demands. Cease all hostilities, withdraw from human space, and begin reparation negotiations. If you choose to escalate this conflict, we will demonstrate why human beings are the only species in known history to have weaponized nuclear fire before achieving interstellar flight. Your move. The response from the galactic community was immediate and panicked. Emergency sessions convened in every major government. Military leaders who had dismissed humanity as a minor irritation suddenly found themselves staring at the wreckage of facilities they had thought impregnable. The Zephyrian High Command's crystal chamber resonated with harmonics of fear as their military analysts confirmed the impossible. Somehow, the humans had struck at the heart of their industrial capacity with weapons that bypassed every known defense. "Ow!" demanded Supreme Commander Velthara, their form shifting from blue to agitated orange. Our sensor networks detected nothing. Our defense platforms reported no hostile contacts. Yet 17 platforms simply ceased to exist. Chief Analyst Zephmoth manipulated holographic displays showing the attack sites. The precision is unprecedented. Each facility was completely destroyed, but neighboring installations were untouched. This suggests either technology far beyond our understanding or intelligence gathering of frightening accuracy. Or both, added military coordinator Zefkala grimly. We underestimated them, Velthara. Badly. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as each major power grappled with the reality that humanity had somehow leapfrogged from primitive victim to existential threat seemingly overnight. In the Veltar Confederacy's war room, General Velgarin stared at the reports in disbelief. They severed our quantum entanglement communication network. Do you understand what that means? They possess technology that can manipulate quantum states across interstellar distances. We don't even have theoretical frameworks for that level of advancement. Defense Minister Velhara nodded grimly. And they did it while remaining completely undetected by our most advanced sensor arrays. Our entire defensive doctrine is based on the assumption that we can see threats coming. If we can't detect their ships, then we can't defend against them, Velgarin finished. We need to reconsider our position regarding the human question. The Cretan reaction was perhaps the most telling. As a species that valued biological supremacy above all else, they were horrified by the precision with which humanity had neutralized their manufacturing organisms. Queen Mother Krisha's pheromones filled the royal chamber with chemical markers of profound unease. The small flesh demonstrates capabilities beyond theoretical limits, she communicated to her war daughters. They have achieved biological manipulation that exceeds our own understanding of genetic engineering. This suggests technological development far beyond their apparent primitive status. War daughter Krevel buzzed agreement. Queen Mother, perhaps we should consider the possibility that the small flesh have been deliberately concealing their true capabilities. For what purpose? To make us underestimate them. To make us attack first, giving them justification for the display of force we have just witnessed. The implications of this possibility sent ripples of alarm pheromones throughout the chamber. If humanity had been capable of this level of retaliation all along, then every attack on their colonies had been a calculated risk, designed to provoke exactly the response they were now witnessing. Back on the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Chun monitored the flood of panic communications between hostile governments. The quantum communication network gave humanity unprecedented intelligence-gathering capabilities, allowing them to eavesdrop on previously secure transmissions. Admiral, reported Intelligence Officer Commander Zhang, were detecting massive fleet movements from all hostile powers. They're recalling ships from offensive positions and repositioning them for defensive operations. Exactly as expected, Chen replied with satisfaction. Fear makes them predictable. They're no longer thinking about attacking human settlements. Now they're worried about protecting their own. Commander Park looked up from her tactical display. Ma'am, the Global Defense Council is requesting a status report. They want to know if we're prepared for the retaliation strikes. Chen smiled grimly. Tell them that if any hostile power is foolish enough to attack human settlements in the next 48 hours, they'll discover that our demonstration was remarkably restrained compared to our actual capabilities. The truth was that Operation Courtesy's end represented only a fraction of humanity's new military capacity. The real weapons, the truly devastating technologies that Dr. Hassan's teams had developed, remained hidden and ready. If the galaxy wanted to escalate, humanity was prepared to show them exactly why their species had conquered a planet full of creatures stronger, faster, and more naturally equipped for violence than they were. The final warning had been delivered. Now humanity waited to see if the galaxy was wise enough to listen or foolish enough to ignore it. Either way, the age of humanity as the galaxy's victim was over. The only question now was whether their former tormentors were intelligent enough to adapt to the new reality. The 48-hour deadline passed in tense silence. Across the galaxy, humanity held its breath as they waited to see which path their former tormentors would choose. The answer came not in the form of military retaliation, but in an unprecedented event in galactic history. A joint communication from the 6 major powers who had been systematically attacking human settlements. Admiral Chun received the transmission in her ready room aboard the Retribution, flanked by Admiral Rodriguez and Dr. Hassan, who had been transported to the flagship for this critical moment. The main display activated, showing representatives from each of the major hostile powers arranged around what appeared to be a hastily constructed diplomatic facility. Supreme Commander Velthara of the Zephyrian Empire spoke first, their crystalline form showing the dim blue coloration that indicated submission in their species. Admiral Chun, we have convened this unprecedented gathering to discuss the new realities of galactic politics. General Velgarin of the Veltar Confederacy leaned forward, his scarred features showing none of the arrogance that had characterized previous communications. Humanity's demonstration of force has been noted. We wish to discuss terms for a cessation of hostilities. Queen Mother Krishaw's pheromone translators conveyed reluctant respect as she added, the small flesh has proven worthy of recognition as a significant power. The Krishin acknowledged this new status. Similar statements came from representatives of the 3 other major powers. For the first time in galactic history, humanity was being addressed as equals rather than irritants to be exterminated. Chun leaned back in her chair, studying the faces of beings who had authorized the deaths of millions of human civilians. Her voice, when she spoke, carried the authority of someone who had spent decades learning that respect in the galaxy was earned through strength, not granted through diplomacy. Ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed collective consciousnesses, she began, using the formal address protocol that acknowledged each species' unique governmental structure. 48 hours ago, you were given simple demands. Cease hostilities, withdraw from human space, and begin reparation negotiations. I note that none of those demands have been met. Supreme Commander Velthara's form shifted to an even deeper blue. Admiral, you must understand that mobilizing our forces requires time. Fleet movements on this scale cannot be accomplished immediately. Your fleets were mobilized quite efficiently when you were attacking defenseless human colonies, Rodriguez interjected coldly. I fail to see why withdrawal should take longer than deployment. Dr. Hassan activated a holographic display visible to all participants. Perhaps we can clarify the situation. Our intelligence networks have been monitoring your military movements since our initial demonstration. What we've observed is interesting. The display showed fleet positions across all 6 empires. Rather than withdrawing from human space, the hostile powers had repositioned their forces in what was clearly a defensive formation designed to protect their core systems while maintaining their ability to strike at human settlements. This positioning, Hassan continued, suggests that you're still considering military solutions to what you perceive as the human problem. Allow me to disabuse you of that notion. Chun took over the presentation. Dr. Hassan's teams have spent the past 2 days identifying additional strategic targets throughout your territories. We now have complete tactical assessments of every military installation, industrial facility, and critical infrastructure node in your empires. The display changed to show a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with thousands of red indicators marking targets across enemy space. The scope was staggering. Humanity had somehow cataloged virtually every significant facility in known space. General Velgarin's face went pale. This level of intelligence gathering would require years of infiltration, thousands of agents, surveillance networks spanning multiple star systems. Or, Chen interrupted with a cold smile, it requires technology that makes your most advanced spy craft look like children's toys. She activated another display showing long-range reconnaissance data that could only have been gathered by sensors operating at unprecedented distances. Gentlemen, you've been thinking in terms of conventional warfare. Fleets meeting fleets, traditional battles with predictable outcomes. That's not how humanity fights. Commander Park stepped forward to continue the briefing. Every communication you've had with your own forces for the past week has been monitored by our quantum intelligence network. Every ship movement, every strategic discussion, every contingency plan, we've heard all. The alien representatives exchanged alarmed glances. If humanity could monitor their secured communications, then no military planning was safe from human oversight. Queen Mother Krishaw's pheromone output spiked with anxiety markers. The small flesh claims abilities that exceed theoretical possibilities. Such technology cannot exist. Can it? Dr. Hassan activated another display, this one showing detailed technical schematics. 3 years ago, humanity began a comprehensive analysis of every piece of alien technology we could acquire. Wreckage from battles, captured equipment, even items purchased through legitimate trade channels. We reverse-engineered everything. She highlighted specific components on the schematics. What we discovered was that every species in the galaxy had developed along similar technological paths. Similar energy signatures, similar material sciences, similar theoretical limitations. This made your technology predictable. Admiral Rodriguez leaned forward. Predictable technology is vulnerable technology. Every weapon system you've developed has countermeasures. Every defense you rely on has weaknesses. Every communication protocol you use can be compromised. Chun reactivated the tactical display, showing the thousands of identified targets. But, more importantly, you all made the same fundamental error in your assessment of humanity. You assumed that because our expansion appeared slow and our technology seemed primitive, we were weak. In reality, Dr. Hassan continued, humanity has been practicing restraint. We colonize space, gradually not because we lack the capability for rapid expansion, but because we wanted to be good neighbors. We used simple technology, not because we couldn't develop better, but because we saw no need to appear threatening. The implications sank in gradually. Humanity hadn't been the galaxy's victim due to inferior capability. They had been the galaxy's victim by choice. And that choice had now ended. Supreme Commander Veltharaz's form had shifted to a deep purple that indicated profound distress. You're saying that humanity has been deliberately concealing your true capabilities for centuries. Not concealing, Chun corrected, simply not displaying them unnecessarily. Human culture values restraint, diplomacy, and peaceful coexistence. We tried very hard to find our place in the galactic community without resorting to demonstrations of force. However, Rodriguez added ominously, human culture also values reciprocity. You attacked our colonies, so we identified your critical infrastructure. You murdered our civilians, so we developed weapons capable of sterilizing your planets. You declared us unworthy of existence, so we prepared to prove otherwise. Dr. Hassan brought up a new display showing humanity's actual technological capabilities. The representatives from the hostile powers stared in growing horror at weapons that could crack planets, ships that could cross the galaxy in days rather than months, and defensive systems that made their most advanced shielding obsolete. This is humanity's true technological level, Hassan explained calmly. We've been operating at approximately 15% of our actual capacity. The demonstration you witnessed 2 days ago utilized our oldest and least sophisticated systems. General Velgarin found his voice first. What do you want from us? Chin's expression didn't change. The same thing we wanted 300 years ago when we first encountered alien life. To coexist peacefully, to trade fairly, and to be left alone to pursue our own development. The difference is that now we're in a position to insist on these conditions rather than merely hope for them. She activated a new display showing revised territorial boundaries. These are humanity's new territorial claims. As you can see, we're not demanding your core systems or seeking to conquer your empires. We simply want recognition of our right to exist and expand without interference. The territorial claims were actually quite modest. Little more than humanity had possessed before the attacks began, plus buffer zones around Earth and the major human colonies. Furthermore, Chun continued, we want reparations for the colonies you destroyed and the lives you took. Not punitive damages, simply fair compensation for reconstruction and support for the families of those killed. Queen Mother Krishaw's translators conveyed confused pheromones. These demands are reasonable. Given your demonstrated capabilities, we expected total submission or the demand for tribute. You're still thinking in terms of conquest, Rodriguez explained. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We want to be part of it, as equals rather than victims. Chun stood and walked to the viewport, gazing out at the stars. Here's what's going to happen. You have 72 hours to begin concrete steps toward meeting our demands. Withdrawal of forces from human space, formal recognition of our territorial claims, and preliminary discussions on reparations. She turned back to face the alien representatives. If these steps are taken, humanity will consider this matter resolved. We'll return to our policy of peaceful coexistence, trade, and mutual development. And if they're not taken, ask Supreme Commander Velthara, though their tone suggested they already knew the answer. Dr. Hassan smiled, and for a moment the alien representatives could see the same expression that had driven humanity to dominate a planet where they were neither the fastest, strongest, nor most naturally armed species. Then, we moved to Phase 2 of our response. The demonstration you witnessed was us being polite. Phase 2 is us being efficient. The display showed new targeting information, not just industrial and military facilities, but command centers, government installations, and the infrastructure that supported entire civilizations. Phase 2 targets are selected for maximum strategic disruption. Hassan continued clinically. Communication networks that coordinate your governments, transportation hubs that link your systems, the food distribution systems that feed your populations. Not to cause suffering, but to demonstrate that your entire way of life exists only because humanity chooses to allow it. Admiral Rodriguez added the final piece. And if somehow you're still not convinced after Phase 2, Phase 3 involves technologies that we sincerely hope we'll never need to use. Technologies that make our current capabilities look primitive by comparison. The alien representatives sat in stunned silence. They were being offered generous terms for surrender by a species that could apparently exterminate them at will. The cognitive dissonance was overwhelming. General Velgarin was the first to recover. Admiral Chun, assuming we agree to your terms, what guarantee do we have that humanity won't use these capabilities against us in the future? Chun returned to her seat, her expression thoughtful. The same guarantee we had that you wouldn't attack our colonies. Mutual self-interest. Humanity gains nothing from galactic conquest or the destruction of other civilizations. We benefit from trade, from cultural exchange, from the diversity that different species bring to the galaxy. But, she added with quiet steel, we will no longer tolerate being treated as prey. The galaxy has seen what happens when humanity's courtesy ends. I suggest that no one be curious about what happens when our patience ends as well. The transmission continued for another hour, working out preliminary details and timelines. By the end, humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. 6 major powers had agreed to simultaneous ceasefire and negotiation purely through demonstration of superior capability, with minimal actual violence. As the communication ended, Rodriguez turned to Chun with a mixture of admiration and concern. "Sarah, you realize what we've just done? We've fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy. Nothing will ever be the same." Chun nodded slowly. "That was always the goal, Hassan. Not conquest, not revenge, just changing the equation so that attacking humanity becomes prohibitively expensive while cooperating with us remains profitable." Dr. Hassan was already working on her next displays. The real test will be whether they honor these agreements long-term. Fear is a powerful motivator, but it fades with time and distance. "Then we make sure they remember why they agreed to this," Chen replied. "Not through constant threats, but through constant reminders of what humanity brings to the galaxy when we're treated as partners rather than problems." 6 months later, Admiral Chun stood once again in the observation deck of a space station, but this time the view was very different. Instead of debris fields from destroyed human colonies, she watched construction vessels from 6 different species working together to build New Geneva Station, humanity's first truly integrated diplomatic facility. The galaxy had learned that humanity's final warning wasn't about the end of human restraint. It was about the beginning of human equality. And that had made all the difference. Trade flowed freely between human space and former enemy territories. Joint research projects explore technologies that none of the species could have developed alone. Cultural exchange programs introduced human art, literature, and philosophy to civilizations that had never imagined such diversity of thought. Most importantly, no human colony had been attacked in 6 months. Not because humanity was feared, though they certainly were respected, but because attacking humans had become economically and politically disadvantageous to any rational government. "Admiral," reported Commander Park, now serving as liaison to the Galactic Cooperative Council, "we're receiving the final signatures on the Mutual Non-Aggression Treaty. All major powers have ratified the agreement." Chun smiled, remembering the frightened young lieutenant who had reported the destruction of New Brisbane over a year ago. "Thank you, Commander. Any word on the joint exploration mission to the Andromeda Galaxy?" "The Zephyrians have agreed to provide advanced sensor technology. The Veltar are contributing their fastest ships, and the Krishin have offered biological adaptation capabilities. Combined with our stealth and communication technologies, we should be able to mount the most comprehensive exploration mission in galactic history." It was, Chen reflected, exactly what humanity had always wanted, to be part of something larger than themselves, contributing their unique strengths while benefiting from the capabilities of others. The difference was that now they were partners in that endeavor rather than supplicants hoping for acceptance. Humanity's final warning had become the foundation of a new galactic order, one based not on the dominance of the strong over the weak, but on the recognition that every species had something valuable to contribute, and the wisdom to never again assume that courtesy meant weakness. In the end, that might have been humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. The lesson that true strength lay not in the willingness to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when destruction was unnecessary. The courtesy had ended, but the civilization it protected had only just begun.